Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. It's also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on NLL Lacrosse Talk, Gary Groob and a very special guest. Oh, excuse me. I've lost your name.
Max Adler.
Max Adler.
Yeah. I've lost it in my head. It just drew a blank. Max, tell us a little bit about yourself. I actually spent some time with a teammate of yours yesterday. His grandfather passed away this past week, Martin.
Geez. I knew he was Justin Martin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man. I knew how close he was with his grandpa, and he used to come to all the Bandits games. So didn't know that. That's terrible. But, yeah, that's unfortunate.
I do a CFL show and an NLL show, and there's a symbiosis between the two. But first, let's talk about you and how you picked up the lacrosse stick.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So when I was growing up, I'm 30 now, but when I was growing up, lacrosse wasn't really that big. It was kind of just getting started in Florida. So I had a great youth coach who, by the name of Kiki Bosch, who kind of showed me the sport. Ended up going to prep school in the Northeast and decided to do wrestling as my main sport. So didn't really play lacrosse and wasn't actually playing until a little of my senior year. Didn't have much interest doing it in college, but ended up getting into Bentley University, which is a small Division II school right outside of Boston, and kind of, really loved it and fell in love with the face-off position, because what I really liked about the face-off position was the amount of work you put in had a direct correlation with your performance on the field, right? So, if I take a million shots or get a million feeds or, run a million sprints, lift a ton of weight, I'm never going to be Josh Bird, right? I'm never going to be Dane Smith. But facing off, I could be one of the best. And so that's when I really fell in love with the position and had some great resources around me to help me. Joe Nardella was actually my coach, and he was the assistant coach at Harvard at the time. So I'd always go and train with him. Had a relatively successful Division II career, but nothing historical. I was never the best at my position in Division II. So didn't have much of an expectation to play professionally, but played they do a Division I and II All-Star game, and it happened to be right before the MLL draft. So ended up playing in that, played really well in that, and Tony Seaman was paying attention to that game and ended up drafting me to the Denver Outlaws, because that year was the year we drafted Zach Courier too, and it was me or him to be the backup faceoff guy, and they quickly realized Zach Courier was too good of a lacrosse player to take faceoffs, so I kind of slotted into that role, and started playing with the Outlaws. Absolutely loved it. I mean, to go from Division II to, be playing with the guys I grew up watching, and, John Grant Jr. is one of my coaches, and Zach Courier, and, Matt Gilray, and all these guys that, like getting to play with them, and, Dylan Ward, and them also being my best friends was a really cool and special experience. So I absolutely loved it. So started with the Outlaws. And then when the leagues merged together, started playing in the PLL for the Chaos, and that's where I met, Dane Smith, Josh Byrne, Chase Frazier, Kluch, all those guys who introduced me to the NLL. And it's funny because with the Outlaws, and it being from Florida, I never really knew what the NLL was or box lacrosse was. I just had never heard of it. And then through the Outlaws, Mohegan Sun, where the New England Black Wolves used to play, is 45 minutes down the road. So I'd always go to those games to watch those guys. And I was like, this is incredible. Like, what an awesome, action-packed sport. And always had, I don't even want to say the dream of playing in the NLL, because it seemed too far-fetched, having never played the sport. But I remember when Chugger called me and was like, yeah, we're interested in, having you this year. And my first box game was the first time I ever wore box pads or ever stepped on a box floor. So yeah, that kind of took me to where I'm at. So it was pretty crazy.
So I guess we could define your definition of becoming a champion isn't about being the best player, but being your best in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I think, being your best in the playoffs and also just being like on an individual basis, my goal was never to be the best player. It was to be the best teammate and do whatever I possibly could to help my team win. Whether that's, literally helping out with water bottles. I remember doing that with the Outlaws. And, being a great teammate goes a really long way. And doing those small things, I think, can take you really far because, and give you an opportunity. Because I really think a lot of the opportunities I've had were because I always tried to be the best teammate I could be.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of the best players in every sport that haven't won championships. So it's not just about that. So it's about taking advantage of the opportunity you're given, and you don't have to be the best player in the league to win. So that's what makes team sports makes guys like you chase the water bottles.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, you look at pretty much any championship team I've played on paper, we've never been the best team. We've always been the closest team off the floor. We've cared for each other the most. Any of my teammates would do anything for me, I'd do anything for them. So yeah, I really think it, especially, the teams and the talents extremely high that it's really who plays together the best and who gets along the most.
Gary?
Well, you were definitely the idea of things happen for a reason. Meaning, I'll go back to the beginning. You're in high school, and as a wrestler, you get an injury that stops you from wrestling. Now, enter lacrosse. Things happen for a reason. Now,
Definitely.
Let's talk a little bit about that. And I know it wasn't stellar at the time, but your foray and who really was an influence on you as you were kind of getting used to picking up a lacrosse stick and getting going?
Definitely. So yeah, I mean, coming out, like I walked on to the team at Bentley, so I didn't get recruited. No one watched me play. It was a Division II school, and I was like, I've played sports my whole life, so I want to continue to play sports. And Bentley was the right academic fit for me at the end of the day. That's why I went there, and didn't really have any expectation to play, or I hoped to, but didn't really think it was that much of a possibility. But yeah, I mean, I had a coach, Christopher Marmiani, who was both my coaches, Jim Murphy and Christopher Marmiani, were assistant coaches at the Candids at the time, and really took time out of practice to help me out and help me realize that the amount of work I put in was going to have a direct correlation on the field. And it didn't matter that I was inexperienced and hadn't played lacrosse my whole life and wasn't from a hotbed. If I was willing to work hard, I was going to, be able to have success. So, I'd really say Jim Murphy, Christopher Marmiani, who was the assistant coach, and then definitely Joe Nardella. He was my main training partner, so we'd always be taking reps against each other. And I'm a pretty firm believer, especially in wrestling, like you always wanted to wrestle
right
against the best competition because that's how you get better. Having Joe Nardella in my backyard definitely helped with that, and just, what it was like to be a pro, how you had to take care of yourself off the field and everything like that.
Right. Now, you made the most of your opportunity at Bentley because your first year you took 7 faceoffs. But through hard work and everything like that, by the time in year 4, you were gone from number 5 to number 1. You were a 2-time Division II All-American. You definitely made the most of your time and film and everything else and putting in the work. And the key there, putting in the work.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, it's really just a credit because I had all the resources in place to be successful. It was just, putting in the time and work, which I really think is the easy part because I had the roadmap. It was just, you have to do the work, which I don't have a problem doing. I just needed the guidance. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because when a lot of people see I only took 5 faceoffs my freshman year. And then, weren't you mad? Why don't you transfer, etc. But for me, it was exactly where I was supposed to be. That's, I just didn't have the skills at the time to do that. So I'm definitely not bitter or anything like that. I was just super thankful to have had these opportunities. Oh, I think we lost.
Did we lose Gary?
I think so.
Oh my. We could drill down on that if you like, Max.
Yeah. No, I mean, especially especially when I was playing in the pros, a lot of times people ask me, "Oh, don't you wish you would have played Division I lacrosse, or like you were overlooked and you have a chip on your shoulder," which is really the complete opposite. If I could do it differently, I wouldn't have done it any differently. My brother played Division I lacrosse, and I saw what he did, and he had a great experience. But I also had a great experience, both academically, athletically, and socially. And it was, really the perfect fit for me. And I wouldn't have done anything differently or gone to any other school or played Division I.
It's not like you didn't understand what field lacrosse was like.
Correct.
Right. So you didn't miss out on playing field lacrosse. And I think that's the important thing. And probably I would surmise or assume that some of that field lacrosse experience kind of helped you in box.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My field lacrosse definitely helped me a lot in box, but at the same time, it's like a completely different sport. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's similarities, especially facing off, but also like how defense works and the physicality and
there you go,
crowds and atmosphere. I mean, talk about like playing in Buffalo.
There you go.
Which we can talk about more, but like it was a completely different experience. But yeah, there was definitely similarities.
Yeah, I'm referring just to the ball handling, the being able to see the bigger picture, right, when you're playing. But to your point, it's 100%. I agree with it 100%. The one difference with NLL Lacrosse is that the fans have more of a impact on the players, and the players. Gary always likes to talk about how sometimes in some arenas it feels like the fans are right on top of the players, and I've seen it in some arenas like the Maple Leaf Gardens before they tunneled that one. So you do get the impact of the fans more than you do in field lacrosse.
Yeah, and I mean, I also just think the fans are more passionate. There's no casual fans at Bandits games. I mean, I think I saw this on Twitter, but like there's lacrosse games, and then like the Bandits games are a religious experience for people.
Absolutely.
Like it is another level of passion of, these people live and die with us. They're not just there to watch a lacrosse game. And, they know every play, they know every penalty, they know when to cheer, when to boo, when a bad call's made. And it's unlike anything. I mean, especially from being from the United States, I had a lot of friends who've come to college, MLL, PLL, and a bunch of them came to the Bandits game 2 years ago when I was playing. And they said it was not only the best sporting, like the best lacrosse they've ever seen, because they were used to, PLL, MLL. Yep. They went to a lot of those games. They said it was one of the best sporting events they've ever been to. I've never met anyone that went to a Bandits game and didn't love it. Not just like it, not just have a good time, but love it. And was like, I mean, it's such an incredible experience. I've been to every MLL, PLL, college championship, every championship you can imagine. A regular season Bandits game far surpasses any of those.
I think the success helps a little bit of the franchise. It's and the town. It is the the championship team in Buffalo. And not to downgrade the Sabres, but the Bandits are a winning team, and everybody loves a winning team.
And like Josh Byrne and Dane Smith, Chase Tahoe, like they're top. Like Josh Byrne and Dane Smith are top 5 Buffalo athletes. Like we go somewhere, everyone's asking for their picture. I mean, they are like lacrosse, and especially the markets I've played, right? It's not like considered a major pro sport. It's, the fans, like I had great fans for the Outlaws and, played around great fans in the PLL, they're passionate or whatever. But I mean, in Buffalo, they are the real deal. People go crazy for them.
Absolutely. And I think it has a lot to do with the triumvirate of teams in the immediate vicinity, that being Toronto and Rochester. There's a real excitement, because of that as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, I remember when we would go play Toronto and all our fans would travel. And the same time, they have great fans too. So it was like, I remember playing those games and like those playoff series, and it's like, US versus Canada, like you have people traveling, and it was, people really get into it. I know most of our players are Canadian, but like you still have that component of a border war, and it's right over the border, and it's just, it's the best. Like, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Forgive me, my internet's doing weird things. We've been having power failures around here, so hopefully we're back for the for the rest of the show. I know what you're saying with Banditland. Sitting up in the press box when you won the championship, it was actually scary because the floor was rumbling, and being up in the roof with 19,000 people going absolutely nuts for the first time in 15 years to win a championship. That place was ready just to erupt, and to see the streets after the game and the bars and everything else for the celebrations was just, you can't put that into words of just how great that was for the fans and for the players.
Definitely. I really try to, like, when I'm playing, tune everything out and stay as even keeled and as level as possible. And listen, I don't want this to sound conceited or anything, but when I scored, I just remember it being so loud, it like scared me. Like the energy in that stadium was on another level. Like it was crazy. And then after the game, like, it wasn't just like some lacrosse team winning the championship. Like I won a championship with the Outlaws and in the PLL, and this was like the city was celebrating. We had on a rainy Thursday, like 7,000 people at the parade.
Yeah, that's unheard of. I know. And Buffalo's got one of the most obnoxious goal horns, and horns that will rattle your fillings out of your teeth. I barely heard that thing when it went off at the end of the game. That's how loud it was in that arena. I've been in some loud arenas, Saskatchewan, and when they've won, and a few other places, Rochester, when they've won. But this, I can't even compare it to anything. And with the Buffalo fans, when Buffalo finally won it a couple of years ago, it was ridiculous how loud it was.
Oh yeah, 100%. It was crazy because I grew up going to the Florida Panthers games. My dad had season tickets, so we'd always go to that. And I love sports, and I was like, how cool would it be to play in an atmosphere like this? And Panthers weren't very good at the time. There weren't many fans. And then to play in Buffalo with way more fans than the Panthers ever got when I was going to games, and like way more passionate fans, it was really cool. And yeah, to your point, you go to any arena in any sport, and I'll put Banditland up against any of them. Playoff hockey game. I went to the Panthers playoff hockey games this year. Like I'd put our playoff games right up there with any of them.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now I want to talk a bit about the MLL with you, and like I say, Tony Seaman was a former guest of ours. I want to talk a bit about Tony and his influence on you, and I know how much Tony loved coaching in Denver, and just the ambiance and the fans and everything like that. Denver was one of the big places for MLL, for fans, and they parlayed it with different things, different shows and everything else to get more people out there. Just your experience there with Tony and with the Outlaws itself.
Yeah, it was the best. I think back to like my professional lacrosse, and how lucky am I? I got to play for the Outlaws, which was the best organization in professional lacrosse in the MLL at the time, and then the Bandits, which is by far the best atmosphere you could possibly play in. So I like kind of have to pinch myself and just realize how fortunate I was to be able to play in those environments and those situations. But yeah, specifically for Tony, I couldn't ask for a better coach to play for, especially when I was trying to get in the door, have a fair shot, not being a big name. Just the entire Outlaws organization, it was all about winning and being a great teammate, and it really aligned with my philosophies. So it was it's just like, I still talk to Tony all the time. He still is so close, and we all love Tony just because he was like a straight shooter, great guy. All he cared about was winning, and then also really cared for us and loved us, which not saying other coaches don't, they definitely do, but he was just like kind of a father figure to a lot of us, and just an awesome person and really great, like a really, really great coach. And especially a professional coach, right? Like it's a little different. Just because you're a great college coach doesn't mean you're going to be a great professional coach. And he just kind of understood it and understood how to read the locker room.
Right. Now, to show how far you come as a face-off guy, I want to bring up August 10th, 2019, against Chesapeake, where you won 23, the final 23 face-offs at a 95.83% face-off average, set a new MLL record. This is a long way from, well, Joe Nardella was showing me how to do it. And, I think you learned all the lessons in that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it was, I had a really great roadmap to follow. I also, once I graduated college, you were kind of on your own, which I think benefited me because I didn't have to worry about, being sore for practice. Everything was on my own schedule. I found a great strength and conditioning coach who, once again, laid out the roadmap for me, saying, I told him I want to be in the best shape, ready to go. Whatever I need to do, I'll put in the time. So he gave me a plan to do that. So just like great resources. And then specifically that game in the Outlaws, I mean, on my wing was Zach Currier and Matt Gilbert, right? So like, Team Canada's wings. And there's a lot of 50-50 balls. There's a lot of times where, I remember losing a clamp, other guy flipping it through his leg. Zach Currier beats two guys, picks up the ground ball and goes and scores. Him and Matt Gilbert were very, very important. And I didn't take it for granted. I knew how good they were. I could tell when I was playing with them and how many 50-50 balls would magically go my way. I really had some great wings, and it was, really important for me.
Right. Now, originally when the PLL came around, they offered you a position, you turned it down. You would rather be city-based and playing for the MLL up until the merge. Merge comes, you join Chaos. You win in your first year. Talk about the differences between MLL and PLL. It should have been a little bit of a culture shock, I would imagine, with the way they designed everything.
Yeah, it was definitely different. Like, especially in that time, like I remember 2019, it was like we played, I think it was like 18 games or something. It was the longest season ever, but it was so much fun and we got so close. And, it was like everyone was going to every game in Denver, and it was just such a great experience. And we had such a great locker room that was honestly one of the most fun years of lacrosse was that year. And then 2020 COVID bubble happens, that season happens. And I don't know, it was definitely different. So I turned down when they first offered me a PLL contract after we won in 2018. Because for me, I love the city atmosphere. I love playing for a city, and I loved having a home fan base, especially Outlaws. Like, the best pro atmosphere outfield, I thought, in professional was the 4th of July Denver Outlaws game. So I really loved playing in that atmosphere. And you also had an organization where everyone, similar to the Bandits, where you have team doctors, you have everyone that's trying to take you in the right way to get you, to win and to win a championship. That's everyone's goal. Where the PLL, you have your coaches and, teammates, but you don't have that entire organization helping you get to that spot. So, for me, I mean, I love playing for the Outlaws. It was a culture shock. The rules were also a little different. I mean, my first game, I remember, was at Gillette. And it was really just like, for me, a lot different, right? So, the first game at Gillette, I was against Joe Nardella. They'd lost the championship, the bubble championship the year before, and kind of brought me in and drafted me to go against him and to have more success. I just remember having the worst game. All my friends were there. It was kind of a nightmare situation. But as the season progressed, I got a lot closer with my teammates. I think Andy Towers had a lot of confidence and believed in me and said, we still have your back. We believe in you, and gave me the time I needed to get adjusted and get acclimated.
Right. Now, by being part of Chaos, you'd mentioned all the Buffalo Bandits were there. Tell me, when Chucker called you originally, what did he say that was expected to get you on the
so
team?
When he called me originally, I thought someone was playing a joke on me because it was like halfway through the season. I'd never played box before, so I thought, like Byrne or Dane or Klutch or someone was messing with me because I just like didn't really think it was it wasn't on my radar, let's just say. And then when I what was expected with me is just like, they needed help with the face-off X. They were struggling there on draws, and it was like it wasn't really that much expectation. Just like kind of come in, do your best. Like, we understand you're not very familiar with the game, but we'll teach you and we'll help you out and we'll support you in any way we can. So and then when I got there, like, they couldn't have been more supportive. My teammates, guys who like Marcus Mignolo, Brett Noseworthy, who were playing, they were coming out of the lineup so I could go in and take faceoffs. They were the ones that were explaining to me the game, telling me what they saw from the press box, literally helping me put my pads on because I didn't know how. So it was a really, really great locker room and great situation of everyone kind of trying to help me perform at my best.
Are you there, Gary? Oh, maybe we lost him again. When you get ready to play,
adjusting.
Oh, here we go.
Sorry, can you repeat that? I lost you for a second.
Do you have trouble adjusting?
Yeah, it was different. It was a learning experience. So I think it was a little different, but like I said before, I really had all the resources to help me out. There weren't really that many expectations because I never played the game before. So my big thing was I wasn't going to not be successful because I wasn't working hard enough, right? Like, I was going to work as hard as I could and be the best teammate possible. And wherever the cards fell, they fell. Like, that's all I could control. I can't control that I had never played box before. I can't control that, guys I was facing off with had, training camp and years of experience. I just could really control what I could control.
Right.
What was the biggest thing that you had to adjust to when it came from, your first experiences in box lacrosse?
What was the biggest thing I had to adjust to? It's a good question. I just think like the wings, I'm used to them coming from the side, so me having more room to operate. Where in box lacrosse, like you got to pick it up clean or you're going to be in trouble because everyone's right on you. So I just think one, like being more efficient with my exits and just doing a better job with my body to use it as a barrier to, be able to pick up those tough loose balls. And also like field lacrosse, you're going to get push calls and whatnot. Box lacrosse, like all bets are off. You got to be tough and you got to be able to pick up the ground ball. You're not going to get bailed out with like a soft push call or a hold or something like that.
Right. The close proximity is the whole adjustment that you have to make.
Definitely. And the rules, right? Like, it's a more physical game. There's
Absolutely.
more that gets let go. You can cross-check. You can do all these different sorts of things that I wasn't used to.
It's also field. It's more blueprinted for you. Everything is mapped out and plays are set, whereas box is more of a feel and how you're going to do things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, 100%, right? Like, I can always go back. Yeah, like I can always go back to a certain area or whatever, put the ball to a certain area and I'll be safe. Where box, you can't really do that.
Right. Now I wanted to change directions a little bit. I want to talk about your time with Team Israel in 2000, I guess 17. You went out there, fell in love with the culture and everything there, and met up with Bill Baroza, another former guest of ours, and started working with them. Let's talk about how you got involved and all the things that went into you becoming part of Team Israel for the Netanya 2018 Worlds.
Yeah, so that was like I just graduated. I was taking a few classes at Bentley for my master's program, and the timing kind of worked out where they were like, you can come live out here, and it was February. I was living in Boston at the time. It was freezing. And they're like, if you live out here for 2 months, you can come play in the 2018 World Championships with us. And you can train with us while you're out here to get ready for my MLL season. So kind of a no-brainer. And it was really cool to just like be involved with that culture, teach the game of lacrosse there, live over there for a couple months. And then it was cool because not only was I playing for Team Israel, but they were hosting it at the time. So to play for the host country, and the kids, I helped coach for them to be able to come to our game and to really grow the game there was special.
Right. Talk about some of the programs you helped develop while you were there.
There's a program called Telmond, and kind of just started that program from scratch and just went to like some sports administration in town and said I wanted to do a lacrosse program, got some kids' contact information, and it was fun. Like they never played before. I was used to working with people with especially facing off, more experience, but it was a really great time, and I really think I got as much out of it as they did.
Right. That's one of the programs that caught my attention last year when I was doing the Worlds in San Diego was Team Israel. I took a number of photos that actually Dan Kraft wound up taking from me. But
cool.
To watch that team, with you, they went up 7th. I think they did somewhere around the same in the last Worlds. But there's a lot of players down in the works there to come up now. That's going to be a great program for a lot of years.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of Israeli born players, right? It's not just like Americans coming in. So yeah, it seems super exciting, and there's a lot of headway there. And I know they're big in the box game too, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing them in September. I've seen a number of the guys when I was doing the Rebeski tournament in Prague, and well, things get real there because a couple of guys got called back because they were doing military service as well, had to take furloughs to play the tournament.
Yeah.
Well, things get wild and off they go, and they were playing with a couple of guys down just because of all the political stuff that goes on as well, which is a whole other aspect to something we don't have to deal with here in North America.
Yeah, and I mean it's pretty crazy, right? Like those guys are fighting for the country and then representing it, so that's got to be pretty cool for them, So I think that's pretty special that guys are serving in the military, legitimately fighting for their country, and then getting to represent it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, I want to go again with a different direction. I want to talk about State of the Union. You were in the NLL for a couple of years. Over those couple of years, probably the most serene time between players and owners. This is the only time in history that I can think of where they're not at each other's throats and there's not a strike looming and everything like that. Reed Reinhold has a lot to do with that. But just in your time there, looking forward to the league, what do you see? Do you see this ever becoming a full-time gig?
Yeah, I really think the opportunities are pretty endless for the NLL because especially if you
do you see this ever becoming a full-time gig?
Yeah, sorry, you got me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, perfect.
Well,
yeah,
go ahead, Max.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm pretty bullish on the NLL. I think that the product is just on another level. It's one of the most exciting sports you can watch, especially viewing it. I think is great, but I think if you're gonna just throw it on, ESPN or TSN, you have to build up these storylines because the Buffalo-Toronto storyline and the rivalry and the cross-border and they're only an hour from each other. Our storylines and Steve Piolo covering Tom Schreiber and those storylines and the fighting you have to build up. You can't just throw it on a network. So I think if they do a better job with building up storylines and working with their media partners, there's a ton of possibility there. And then just the crossover, if you like the NHL, you're going to like the NLL, right? So it's such an easy thing to cross sell. I think that's how it got so big in Buffalo. Calgary, it's massive like that. Saskatoon, same thing. So I think if you can find those NHL owners that are willing to back it and, understand that it's an investment, but it can have a really large payoff in the future. And there's a lot of synergies, right, between the NHL and the NLL and, their social media and whatnot that I think, the possibilities are really endless.
Do you think, as a player, do you think that a full-time gig is in the works, though, somewhere down the road a little bit?
So that's a good question, right? And this is something I talk a lot about with like my friends is in one way, like, yeah, it would be great. But in the other way, a lot of the best lacrosse schools are also the best academic schools. Mm-hmm. So you're having guys graduate and can make, 6 figures right out of college. And let's say I could also do that in the NLL. Eventually, I'm going to have to retire, right? Maybe not if you're, play as long as John Tavares or someone like that. But after your career's over, then you have to get into the workforce, and you're probably not going to make enough money to live off of the rest of your life. Maybe you will. But I think that's the tricky part, right? Is like, all right, like I'm 30, I just retired. I've been working, so I actually have like, a substantial career, and I've gotten different titles and promotions and whatnot, where if I didn't and just did lacrosse, I'd have to start from square one in the finance world, which being 30 isn't something I'd, be that keen on doing right now. So I think it's like an interesting situation. I think eventually, yeah, it has to be full-time. I just think it's interesting how you approach that.
The other part of it that I was thinking is one of the things that they market to is it's still one of the affordable sports to bring your family. Because us in Toronto, it's way too expensive for a Leaf game, way too expensive for a Raptors game. But to bring a family of 4 or 5 to a Rock game, you can still do it comfortably. If it becomes a full-time thing and a full-time season, will they price themselves out of their fan bases?
Yeah, something that you got to think about, and it's an interesting, tough balancing act, right? So
even
I don't know.
Well, let's try it a different way. Gary, Max, let's try it a different way. Your situation, you've expressed that you basically worked out the idea of you don't have a full-time job when it comes to lacrosse. So you need a full-time job. So you're working on a full-time job while you're doing, and I don't mean this as an insult to the NLL or lacrosse in general, to support a part-time job. Everybody needs a full-time job. So do you think maybe would you personally be in a different position because the full-time part of the NLL would dwarf or get in the way of what you've been planning on doing? Get what I'm saying? Like there's options for you right now. There's an opportunity for you right now to work on your future while you're playing the game. If it becomes a full-time thing, then it's a situation that you referred to where a player plays and then he has to stop and start over or begin. Yeah. Is afterlife, if you will.
Yeah, and that's a thing, right? Like, and I'm purely speaking of my situation because I know everyone has different situations. But like, coming out of college, if you told me you can either work, do my job at ESPN or play professional lacrosse, I would have done my job at ESPN just because like that's what I went to school for. That's what's the long-term like play is what I had to do. So I understand the full-time thing, but I just think like we need to be a little careful because it might not be like for me, I would have never played, right? So
careful what you wish for.
Exactly, but I'm sure other way where guys, now can make it and train full-time and whatnot. So yeah, I just think it's, for me personally, it would have been, I wouldn't have played professional lacrosse if it was a full-time gig.
That makes it a very interesting situation. That's a very interesting situation and an interesting slant on what it is to be an NLL player.
Yeah, for sure.
Go,
Plus,
Gary.
we had a lot of guys who are first responders too. I don't know if they'd be so crazy about wanting to get out of that field to be full-time also. So yeah, it's an interesting balance. All right, let's talk. We're in the Olympics now. Let's talk about the Olympics 4 years from now. And lacrosse finally makes its recovery back into the Olympics. What's your thoughts on sixes?
I mean, us being in the Olympics is huge, right? Like the exposure, the funding, especially in different countries, the media exposure, helping with TV rights, it being in the Olympics, I think is huge. Sixes, I've watched a little of. It was fine. Like, don't have a super strong opinion either way. Is it the best version of our sport? I don't personally think so. I think the best version of our sport is the NLL and indoor lacrosse. But I also understand there's different constraints on, different countries not having access to indoor field space and equipment and everything like that. And sixes is for like smaller teams. So I think it's a good hybrid between indoor and outdoor. I really think I see Canada dominating that for a while. I think Canada could roll out probably 3 different teams and win all 3 medals from what I saw in Birmingham at Alabama. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But but then you see a team like Japan who won bronze, who was, they looked really, really good. I remember playing against them in the 2018 Worlds. They actually beat us, and they, not the biggest, but they were, super skilled, super quick. So I think this game, like for some smaller, different style countries, can lend really well to them.
Yeah, you've alluded to a lot of the reasons why it's a good idea. A lot of countries don't have the same kind of depth as other countries, and this to me is like more of a sample size for people to get an idea of this sport, to raise the curiosity, to give people a chance to look and see, oh, that's interesting, and be able to have enough countries that it fits the Olympic definition of, an Olympic sport.
For sure. Yeah, definitely.
I think the only change that I would make is it sucks to be a goalie in something like this, especially when you got the greatest shooters all over the world and a 6x6 net. I would put the box net in there at 4x4. It's still going to get a lot of goals, but at least it gives a fighting chance. Maybe even give them some equipment too. Just give them a fighting chance in there.
Yeah, that's honestly a safety thing. I think it's insane that this field's so small and you don't make the goals any smaller, and then the goalies aren't wearing any equipment. That would not be fun.
Well, we'll find out, that's for sure, in the lead up. And they're going to have their eyes open in the pre-Olympic games and stuff like that. There might be that idea that you're saying, Gary, that'll come to fruition and to people's eyes once they actually start playing these games with earnest, right? With the kind of talent that you can expect at the Olympics, at least, leading up to it.
Yeah.
Well, the PLL tournament, right?
Yeah, I just hope that they don't, I hope they're willing to make changes and they don't just go, this is how it is. This is the rules we already made. This is what we're going to stick with. I hope, they experiment and see what's going to work the best and go from there.
You gave the perfect reason where it has to be safe as well, right? Yeah. There has to be some common sense applied to the advertising version of this game, because that's what it is. It's an advertisement. It's a commercial.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, as well, you have the traditionalists saying, no, well, we don't, that's not the real version of the game. And I figure as long as we can get another 280 countries to watch it, once we hook them, because I don't know anybody who's ever looked at the game and go, no, I don't like it. I have never seen a person like that.
It's not about the game. It's about it. Well, it's not about this specific game. It's about seeing the talent, because what I'm looking forward to is seeing the kind of talent play against different countries and have enough talent in every country so that they can put up a decent team, and we can see how it's played around the world. See all the different nations. That's the important thing, because lacrosse does have kind of hockey was the same a very, 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 very long time ago, but it was the same where there were only a few countries that played hockey, right? So now with more, it's more and more interesting. I find it exciting to see Swiss players playing in the National Hockey League. So it'll be very interesting to see Japanese players play in the NLL. That kind of thing. I think that helps raise the profile of the sport, and that's how every league, how every organization, how every sport expands its horizons, right? Basketball, when they went international, that's when they grew. Hockey, when they went international, that's when they grew. Football's trying to be international, and that's why it'll grow.
Yep.
And lacrosse follows that suit.
One of my associates, Mike Kostrick, he just asked a question. Would you give any consideration to coaching juniors or assisting in the NLL's Unboxed initiative?
So juniors, no. I don't know the game well enough. I only played for 2 years. So I definitely would not. I don't have the expertise. On Unboxed, I think it's such a great sport, especially for youth. The amount of, just when I played shoot around, you're getting so many more touches because it's indoor that I think every youth player, like up until, middle school, I guess you can start getting into field, but every youth player should just play box. I see, like, I'm in Connecticut, they're playing on a full field with, these like 8-year-olds with long poles and stuff and barely touching the ball, where, I think box lacrosse, especially teaching the game, I'm very, very for that. So, I think the unbox would be something I definitely would like to be a part of.
Right. That's again where I think sixes would come in great, because instead of having the, your quote unquote right fielder, the kid who just wants to sit there and be with his buddies and hope the ball doesn't come, if they're all running around, they're actually learning the game without realizing they're learning the game, which to me is a win-win in that.
Yep.
Listen, we're down to about a minute left, and I just want to take the time to thank you for taking time out of your day. I know how busy you are. I guess it's being senior financial guy for Disney. It's a pretty big responsibility. So really, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us.
No, thanks for having me. Always love talking NLL, love talking Bandits. So no, I appreciate you having me on. This was a ton of fun.
Right.
Really appreciate it here too. All right, Max, thanks for joining us. Gary, as usual. So for Max Adler and Gary Groob, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching. NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For lacrosse talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Pick up a stick, have some fun. See you next Thursday at 4 p.m.